When we ask cattlemen and women why they value NCBA, one of the most common answers is because of the work done on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. And joining us now to talk more about that work is the Vice President of Government Affairs for NCBA, Colin Woodall. Colin, thanks for joining us in our studio.
It's always great to be with you, Kevin.
Well, begin by telling folks just a little bit about the work you do in Washington, D.C. and your staff there. It's a big job, isn't it?
It is a big job. We have a great team in Washington, D.C. We have 15 on staff. We have a chief veterinarian that a lot of people don't understand that is on staff, helps us with animal welfare, animal health issues. Environmental counsel that helps us with our EPA fights. There are 6 of us that are registered lobbyists that spend our time working with the administration, also up on Capitol Hill working these issues. We also have our in-house communications team and our political action committee, which is a big component of what we do in Washington, D.C. It's our job to work every day with the members of Congress and their staff, and also with the White House and the administrative departments in order to make sure that the policy that's passed by NCBA's members is being heard and acted upon by the U.S. Congress.
And you're adding to that staff, if I understand correctly. Tell us a little bit about the rationale behind that.
We are. Well, when you look at all the issues that we have to deal with right now, the membership really decided that in order to effectively cover it, we need more boots on the ground in Washington, D.C. So we're going to add some lobbyists. We're going to have some additional help in the environmental realm, and also focus on the Endangered Species Act to make sure we're doing everything we can to keep those regulations at bay. So being able to add to our staff, I think, will help us be even more effective for NCBA's members.
And you mentioned an important word, regulation. You know, when I think of policy, many times I think of legislation, but increasingly regulation is becoming an important issue for the cattle industry.
And no better year than this year to talk about that, because when you look at everything that's at stake in November with the re-election of the entire House of Representatives, 1/3 of the U.S. Senate, and of course the White House, there's not going to be a whole lot that Congress does to pass legislation. So we're going to see a lot of regulation out of the last year of the Obama administration. That's going to be regulation on things such as antibiotics, regulations on the environmental front. So that's really going to keep us hopping. And it's a little bit different when you have to engage with these departments, because they're not necessarily up for re-election when you're a career bureaucrat. So it's a little bit harder for us to work the regulatory angle versus actually working a bill up on Capitol Hill.
So as you look over the next year, what sorts of policy issues do you think we should keep an eye on?
Well, we're going to spend a lot of time on EPA, especially the Waters of the United States rule. That is a fight that is still ongoing. We still have a lot of opportunity to engage and ultimately win, and we're optimistic that we can win on this. But really the one area we're going to spend the most time on is trying to get the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPP, passed. This is a huge deal for us as a cattle industry, especially in the access that we will gain into Japan. Right now, all the product that we send into Japan is subject to a 38.5% tariff. That's basically a tax. The TPP is going to allow us to take that down to 9% on most cuts. On some cuts, that'll be 0%. That means more money in our pocket. So we have to get that done as quickly as possible, because the Australians already have their own deal with the Japanese. And if we don't get this done, they will continue to take our market share and our money.
Yeah. So what does it mean for somebody like you to be able to tell the folks that you visit with back there that you're representing 30,000 cattle producers across the country?
You know, it shows these members of Congress that it's not just 1 or 2 of us as staff talking for the industry, that we have producers back home that are showing up to vote for these members of Congress, that they're watching, they're engaged, and they're going to hold these congressional members accountable. Sure. That's why it's important. But what's even more important is we need to add to those numbers. You know, 30,000 is just a small part of all the people engaged in agriculture, and especially in cattle production right now. So we need more members to make sure that we have as much power and influence as possible in Washington, D.C.
You mentioned earlier that this is an interesting year because it is an election year. What would you tell our viewers about what we should expect over the next 6 or 8 months relative to the election?
Well, everybody needs to be looking at the background of their candidate, make sure that they look at what they really stand for, make sure that you're an informed voter as you go into not only the primary, but also the general election. But more importantly, you have to get involved in NCBA. You have to be a part of the process, because if we can all work together to fight up on Capitol Hill, there's nothing this administration or Congress can do to us. So get involved.
Thank you so much, Colin, for your time today.
Thank you, Kevin.
There's never been a more important time to become an NCBA member than right now. The uncertainty in our nation's capital and the constant threat of regulation make it important to have an organization like NCBA standing up for our industry. To become a member, call right now. Just dial 1-866-USA-BEEF or head to our website, beef USA.org.